I was like, ooh, my heart.
Instantly had a upset stomach on it.
Because that's what it seems like.
I don't know.
I
Trying
think
to
they pledged it
cite-
out of edit, is what I thought they pledged it out of.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's, I'll look and see. I don't remember.
I don't think we put it in the
I think
budget.
it better put it in the budget.
Can you look, and if they
Yeah.
didn't, I wanna get that additional done in March.
Yeah,
Because I'm gonna need to get that money in there so I can start paying.
Yeah, and that request really should come from the commissioners.
Okay, so then I need to write that up and send it to the commissioners.
Yeah.
And then ask them to send it to you for the council.
Right,
Okay,
right.
I will do that.
Right.
You sure you got the right one?
Hall,
No,
Yale?
I ran out of,
it's Kivett.
Kivett.
Kivett. Between Yale and Harvard, that's Kivett.
Okay, Yale and Hurd.
Isn't that where Mary Kivett?
Mary Kivett, Mary lives next door to me. She's on Hall Road with me. She's my name.
Must be Jake.
Yes,
You've
ma'am.
already,
I'm Deb.
you've already
I
blacked out.
did hurt all the way down in two sections.
I just ran out there and I didn't see him.
Yeah, and you got my section,
Then the
Mary
next
up
section
to,
I did,
up
Mary,
to-
no, it only goes to her.
probably longer than we need.
Hall Road. Honey, I live out here. Okay, so here's 42,
He's out in the lobby,
okay?
I think.
Oh, I know.
Here's Hall.
Yes,
It tees into Yale,
yes,
right? Then it jogs back, and then here's Hurt,
yes,
and it goes, and Hall goes straight,
yep.
and then it tees into McClure.
Up.
Talking from here.
You done it. You blacktopped it. Yes.
Is it here to here?
Yes.
Oh, it's here to here that I.
No, you've done it all.
Why is this
Yale.
one gator cracking already?
It shouldn't be. This is a
It
brand new.
is.
You gotta come back out. I
I
drive
will.
this. I drive this every day. This is, oh, you know what? You haven't. You haven't done Hall
I
here.
did from
You
here
did
all
to
the
the,
way
right,
down.
you did, you're right. You're right,
know
yeah.
I did.
Yeah, you're right. This
That
is crap.
section is.
It is crap.
No,
But
I
it- yeah.
absolutely enjoy it.
I could chip and seal just to seal up the cracks.
Well, you're just not doing it. How soon do you think you
could
can
not
do
do
that?
It's probably not gonna be till 2023.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I always said,
There's only not
Ones
very
are
many.
rental. Yeah, there's this one. Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah, there's not
Well, and
very
then
many.
two over here.
They're gonna be the ones that won't like it. Cause they'll complain about dust. Sure. Sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Yep, I was gonna
I
pull
don't
it
know.
up.
I guess
Yeah.
he's good, but I
Yeah,
hate
he was out there on the phone.
this long. I drive that every day. You know, I think you wait till you blacktop.
Oh, I hear you. How does Mr. Bray do? I'm doing all right, Ron. Not enough hours in the day, I know that. No, for you, really. You are the last
You
segment.
don't know how many times I've went,
I know. And then I think about how many times I whipped the bag. I should be dead.
yes.
Well, then they tell you now to go over to the stuff that they're sprinkling water on. Oh, great. So everyone's touching that lettuce. And so I'm like, I'm not buying that stuff because everyone's going over
That's
there to
what
get
I
their
thought
fingers
too,
wet.
Dana, when we
Produce
were
guy
live.
told me to do that.
Oh, my gosh. I hadn't
Yes.
even thought about that.
Yes. Makes you think twice.
Welcome back, Harold.
Thank you. Oh, easy.
I am Chelsea Manns. I serve as project manager for the Morgan County Redevelopment Commission. And I think, just in case everybody's going, what are we doing here today? The Waverly sewer treatment plant is nearing completion. And so we really felt that it was important to get these three bodies together to discuss the potential growth in that area and to iron out a few things as we near the finish line. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Hale, who is going to remind us of why we're here in the first place. I think this story actually started 10 years ago, 12, 13?
Closer to 14, 15.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you all. I'm going to take my mask off to speak. So it all started back in 2004 for me. I know Jack Weil had already started working on sewer in the county before that with the Weiser addition. Then he jumped over to Lake Edgewood over my area, did the income survey and didn't work out. Went all the way down to Upper Patton Park and the Patton Park area that needed it really bad. But with the cost of what it'd take for all the forced mains and everything, the lift stations had just made it impossible. So that never happened there. 2004, he met two developers, Dog Martin and Hinkie, Steve Hinkie, started working on Stonebridge. The first location was up there on the hill, a little bit closer to where the golf course was gonna be. That didn't work out. He moved on down closer to 37 in the bottoms, closer to Crooked Creek, which would have been better. But in the long story, it didn't work out. They ended up losing the development, and somebody else has got it now altogether. Moved over across the highway to Marguerite Hodges' property. The first time Jeff was working with Marguerite, it was going to be very visible from the highway. That didn't work out, so I started dealing with Marguerite. It was going to be farther in the back, not too far from where we do have property on the Starlight, the Weber property that we end up getting a Starlight. It was going to be right across the creek from there in that location. It would have been fairly out of visibility for 37, but it fell through and couldn't get that pulled off. Next, we went to the Cragen property, working with them and working with Starlight Leasing on a 1031 land exchange. Was trying to get a sewage treatment plant up at the front part of that property. We was trying to get the back part of it for what we got now is our Greenway Trail back there. Had a meeting with the people in Harrison Township at that time, and they let me know real fast, Kenny, we don't want development. We're not gonna grow, just leave us alone. And that was right here in this meeting room. So we kind of abandoned that side, went across the highway, started working with Richard Cora. We was gonna be putting it down the back in the bottom of his property, that 119 acres or so that he had. Trying to buy that. We actually even got blessing from the county, got some prices or some, got two, appraisals. Actually was gonna make an offer, but we never could get the council to go ahead and back that. That was gonna be at about $1.5 million, if I remember right. It's been a few years ago, but we never was able to secure that, get that blessing from the county council. So we didn't make the offer, and we moved on from there, and we started working with Bargersville and a developer. Talked with them for about a year, and the developer felt like us and Bargersville were moving way too fast, and he wasn't comfortable, so we ended up stopping meeting on that. We spent probably 14, 15 meetings in a year time working with them, trying to work that out. And the whole reason why, and Rwanda Umbarger got with me to start with on that, they was gonna work with this developer, put a sewage treatment plant. We'd already passed Oak Hill subdivision right there on Whiteland Road and Banna, and there was gonna be a sewage treatment plant there after they got to the 10th home. That was the deal with the planning commission. And then she knew that the county was trying to build a sewage treatment plant, and she did not want to see a sewage treatment plant, 3 of them right there within a mile, 2 miles of each other. So that's why we started meeting with Bargersville. But like I said, the developer felt like was moving way too fast, so we stopped meeting. So me and Jeff kept talking about it, and finally I come up with where it's at right now, which is not the best location, I agree, because it is probably one of the highest elevations in the county. but it was already zoned I-3, and we could actually do it and stuff there. Had willing sellers, was another big thing. So that's why we end up coming, and that's why the sewage treatment plant's on the RMR today, so. That's kind of the history of where we're at. And I know I always told Jeff, especially after the Bargersville deal, because he kind of got discouraged. I mean, we'd looked all these years, all these different properties, and he was just pretty much to the point we're never gonna get it. And I kept saying, Jeff, we built it, they're gonna come. It's just like the Field of Dreams. I mean, the development's coming from the north, gonna go south. It's not coming from the south. It's coming from the north, and it's gonna explode, so. Good friends with Mike Duke. Mike knows that. He's ready to develop that, and I mean, it's gonna happen, folks. But we need sewer to do it, and that's what I kept telling the Harrison residents here. And Marguerite Hodges, sweetheart, she told me, she says, can you just leave us alone? We don't want development. And I told Marguerite, I said, Marguerite, whether you want it or not, they get 69 done, you're gonna develop. But if you develop, you need to make sure you're doing it the right way. That is sewer, not septic. You already got enough problems with septics in the area already. So, long story short, 2016, she did give me a hug and thought I was a big dreamer back then, but she appreciated it, and she loves what we did for Waverly Park, and she's a good friend now, so. I'm gonna turn it back over to Chelsea.
Well, I will, as Daniel, I'm sure, I think probably everybody in this
Yep.
room has heard him say, it was Kenny and, I might paraphrase this, it was Kenny and Jeff's baby, but we've raised it. So if you want to take a few minutes to talk about the work the commission's done the last few years.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you all know, Kenny and Jeff had this vision a long time ago, and really had went through a lot of frustration. When I got involved, we pretty much had already known where we were going to put it. We just had to figure out how we could make it happen and how we could afford it, if it could happen. We also talked with a lot of other local government entities, tried to get some partnerships going, because one thing, this is even before I-69, we all know where I-69 is now. It's all kind of common sense. But at the time, there's only, I remember Jeff and I talking about, well, this is where I-69 is going to go. And a lot of people were thinking it was going to go to Mooresville and other places. But we're like, this is the place. So we had some faith, but we didn't know for certain. But we kept trying. And we focused on, we've got to figure out a way to fund this. And we went through multiple iterations of trying to figure out how best to fund this, try to come up with multiple partnerships. Lots of people wanted us to, it's not worth it, step away, let Bargersville work this out. And they've had their own issues. At the end of the day, we just were persistent. You guys know me. I'm not afraid of hard work. Luckily, it isn't just me. We have a great group of redevelopment commission members who have been working hard on it as well. And so between the group of us, we worked, and then we had a great partner in the sewer district. Eric and his team, we're all one big family in that sense. We've just been saying, hey, let's work on this. And we've had disagreements. We've had things, wait a minute, I don't know if I like this, and that's okay. We tried to figure out where is that balance, but we've done that through good discussion, which is what good public policy is about. Eventually, we got to the point where we were able to get SRF funding. We were able to make this happen. I remember a meeting that Eric and I had, and I felt like, honestly, there was in Waverly Elementary School, I thought like people were going to start throwing things at us. It was definitely the most interesting meeting in my public career. But we made it happen, and we got to the point where we said, okay, we're going to build this plant. We've got our funding. Things happened. And then suddenly everybody was like, well, yeah, hey, we're interested too. Johnson County, Bargersville, all these individual units, which tells me that our original plan, which really is something that was the brainchild of Kenny and Jeff Quile, we were just the ones who implemented it, was a solid plan. Now one of the things we're at right now is there are multiple entities involved. There's the commissioners, there's the RDC, there's the sewer district. And oftentimes, the sewer district is working on one thing, the RDC is working on something else, and the commissioners are working on something completely different. And what we felt like as we're getting close to time to turn this plant over to the RDC, or the sewer district, because the RDC does not want to be in the sewer business, we need to make sure we're all on the same page, that we're all working together, especially as there are these other entities that are interested in coming to the party. I don't think it's wise for the RDC to say, well, I think we should do this, and the sewer district say, well, we want to do this, and the commissioners say, we want to do that. We need to, as a family, as a county unit, come together and say, here is our message, and be consistent about that message. And that was kind of the idea behind this meeting. Let's get behind each other. Let's figure out, there's some details we need to work out about the transfer of the sewer plant. Again, we're happy to give it to the sewer district because I do not want to be in your business. We want to focus on economic development. And that is the charter and the mission of a redevelopment commission, is to focus on economic development. We want you to be able to focus on what you're doing, and we feel like we have helped make that happen, but now it's your turn to take over this plant. I want to give you the keys and be done with it and move on to the next project. So that's kind of my overview. Does anybody else from the redevelopment commission have any comments they want to add?
Daniel, you might just briefly talk about our source of funding, where the money came from, how we got it.
We did go through.
How do we pay it back?
We did go through multiple ideas and iterations and multiple ways of looking to pay for this. Ultimately, we settled on the State Revolving Fund, SRF. It is a bond. It is a bond that the RDC holds, not the sewer district. So the RDC is responsible to that. We have been fortunate, the council, we have 2 council members here, the council loaned us some money in the beginning so we could do a lot of this work without having to bond ahead of time. And the good thing is that those funds have, Dan's giving us the details of when exactly, but we should be able to pay, well, we will be able to pay all those funds back this year. I don't know if it's going to be one big lump check this time or one this time, and then the next time we get a disbursement. But the good thing is 2021, that loan from the council, and thank you council members, that loan from the council made it easier for us to look at other types of funding, and I think it was money well spent, and it's all taxpayer dollars. So at the end of the day, I think it was a wise way for us to do things, having multiple organizations work together, because in the end, we're all one county. So does that answer?
Not only the loan that we're going to pay back, but we had bonding,
Yes.
and we had some state money.
Right.
And, but I wanted, Daniel, you might explain how we pay it back, that we pay it back through the increment.
I can do that.
Because people get confused over that, and why we're taking property tax increment away from other units of government. We always intended that, that if we could, there'd come a time we would be able to revert money to units of government. It's not our intention to keep those funds forever. But you might explain just briefly about the increment.
I will, thank you. I did not think about that because it's something we talk about every day, and I forget not everybody talks about TIF districts every day. Right. Tax increment finance districts is how we funded this. The funding for this project, we would not be able to do this if we had not created TIF districts. And the reason we say that is because without those TIF districts, we wouldn't have the power plant that we have. They would have chosen another community. And a lot of people are like, well, they were leaving. That plant was old, it was deprecated, it's been torn down now. If we hadn't had a redevelopment commission and a good plan in place, I do not see how we could have kept IPL here in Morgan County. By keeping them here in Morgan County, we were able to have TIF funds that are specifically allocated just for those development areas. If you spread out the increase in taxes that the power plant brought throughout the whole county, we all see a relatively little increase. But if you keep it into those specific areas like we've done, then those areas can now afford to bond and create infrastructure. Without that infrastructure, then we wouldn't be able to have the growth that we're having in the areas of Waverly and other areas that are coming about. There's a lot of pushback on TIF districts, and usually because it's not done right. I will say this, and I'm very proud of our county and our redevelopment commission. When they talk about how you're supposed to do TIF districts. In fact, we've met at the State House to talk about this. When you talk about how you're supposed to do TIF districts, Morgan County's doing it right. Are we perfect? Of course not. But we're doing it right in the spirit of what TIF districts are. In fact, we've made decisions, you know, when we find we don't need funds, instead of sticking them away in a piggy bank, we are returning those funds to the taxing units. Now, we just got our first round of funding. That's why we're able to pay back the loan to the county council. So with that being said, it will be a few years before we can do that, but once we can do that, that's what we're gonna do, because that's what good policy is. Anything else I missed?
No, I don't, but at any rate, I just think it's, that we all understand where the money came from.
Yes.
And where the bonding, and how we pay back the bonding is through the TIF district increments.
Right.
Over, the basic tax that is being paid is still the same, but the increase in appraised value or because of taxes, the increased revenue, we get to siphon off that increase that would not have taken place but for.
Yeah.
The power plant's a great example. And the improvements that we made to infrastructure were critical to get the power plant to locate here. There were three locations, if I recall, that were being seriously considered. And that's important to our county, our tax base, and it's important to have that power plant, and it was, I think, well worth it.
It was.
We
And
hope the same is true of the Waverly Sewer project, wastewater treatment plant and the collection system. We are not in the business of running anything.
no.
But we are the fulcrum, or we are the point which can leverage money in order to assist development that would not otherwise occur, or to make the development function much more efficiently for the benefit of the county. So thank you, Daniel, I appreciate it.
Thank you. We are very blessed to have Ralph on this redevelopment commission. His years of experience in government, you know, has been invaluable. Maybe I shouldn't have said years of experience, sorry.
No, that's okay. But it, you know, it's hard sometimes to get the concept, and we have tried to do it, as you said. We've tried to do it right. We've tried to make a commitment that when we're able, we will return money.
Yeah.
Or release money, or whatever the mechanism is.
Pass-through is what it's technically called.
Pass-through, thank you.
One thing I'd like to add, it's hard to tell with masks, but I feel like Dr. Allen wants to say something. One of the largest benefactors to the Waverly Sewer District is Waverly Elementary School. And so I think it's another great example of that wouldn't have been possible. I think you guys are very pleased. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Dr.
But-
Allen, could you address what would have happened if we had not put this plant in, as far as the school is concerned?
Well, I can tell you that I know schools can often be critical of TIF districts, and this was a great example of how this process worked very well for us. And our system at Waverly Elementary was in bad shape, in decline, and something like that, I was going to say so simple, it's not simple at all, but that could shut us down at an elementary level pretty quickly. So this is
Isn't Waverly Elementary where most of your special needs students were?
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
work
that's where
or
a
go to school?
large portion of our students with special needs are located. It's, as all buildings are, but it's critical for us on various levels, and so we're very, very grateful to be partnered with you on this. Appreciate it.
I think the sewer plant is an example of how it should be done, and a win-win from both the county side, and also a great example of how these types of projects take years. It does not happen in a couple of years or even a few months. I mean, 14, 15 years, and we're just now in a couple of months, or in a month or so, ready to turn over the keys to the sewer district. That's a long vision right there, and a lot of things could have gone south, but stayed steady, and everybody worked together, and look where we are now.
Well, thank you. A couple things moving to point 3 on the agenda. I do want to point out that we do have Brian Bullock in attendance with Beam Longus and Neff. He is, I think I saw him, there he is. From a technical standpoint, when we start kind of diving into the next 2 points, talking about capacities and what that looks like, I asked that he be here to make sure that he can cover any questions from that standpoint. With agenda item number 3, the discussion regarding the agreement between the Morgan County Redevelopment Commission and the Morgan County Regional Sewer District, I'll hand that over to Senator Bray.
Okay, so Chelsea, thank you very much. And I see Dakota coming in right now, so we don't have to get her on the phone, so well timed.
No problem.
We'd always count on that.
Anytime.
No worries, we know how that goes. So, so the little bit that I'll discuss, and Dakota can obviously weigh in with the significance on this as well, but okay, so the transition is important on how we do this. The Redevelopment Commission, as Daniel and Ralph and the folks have said, they built this. There is no way the Regional Sewer District would be able to build this because you can't pay for this big project with the sewer rates that we're going to get. It just, the math is not there because it's too small of a system, at least at this point. Someday, I think it probably would grow significantly, but not right now. And so the bonding that they discussed already will stay with the Redevelopment Commission, but it's going to be it's going to be up to the Morgan County Regional Sewer District to run the system. And so getting that transferred has been a subject of some discussion, and Dakota and I spoke, and we put together 2 possibilities. One is a contract for purchase of the real estate that would be purchased in theory by the sewer district and be purchased by the sewer district from the Redevelopment Commission. The other possibility is a lease with a future option to purchase. The lease, what I've prepared thus far, just says in 4 years we'll have that option, but that is certainly flexible depending on what we want to do and how we decide to do it. A couple things to think about with regard to these documents is that because of the indebtedness that the Redevelopment Commission has incurred, they had asked us to put into these documents the possibility that in the event we partner with some other entity, and that would be probably Bargersville is the most possible discussion right now, but also potentially Johnson County, and they pay a lump sum of money to the sewer district for use of the wastewater treatment facility, then some of that money would go back to the Redevelopment Commission to free up some of that indebtedness so they could use that money for other projects elsewhere in the county. And so that's kind of weaved into both of these things, and it's up for discussion as to kind of how we go about this. As I think Daniel's already said, the treatment facility and the system in general is ready to be open sometime in March, so a little more than a month away, maybe 6 weeks away. And that's one of the decisions ultimately that we'll need to make, and kind of a conversation that we need to have about how that is best structured.
I'll chime in on that and let me know if you cannot hear me. Initially, when Rod and I sat down and discussed, the first step that we have to do is come to an agreement between the RDC and the sewer district, because we are weeks away from this plant opening, and we as the RDC cannot be in the utility management business. That would make us a taxable entity among other complications, and it's not a business we care to be in. So our first step is reaching a mutual beneficial agreement between ourselves and the sewer district. And then after that, if the sewer district intends on partnering, that is great. That would be beneficial for us as the county. However, it's really not the RDC's position as to whom or how. Our initial and main focus is getting paid back on the bonds which we have already placed forward for the plant so that we can move on to bigger and better things. As we all know, this county has vast expansion opportunities at this time, and we would love to continue that as a county. Before you are the 2 options. I did email those to you ahead of time. This format is supposed to be an open discussion so that we can all reach an agreement that we feel beneficial with moving forward. So please do chime in with any and all questions, concerns, comments, so that we can discuss this. We are against the timeline of opening that plant and also the timeline of drafting this agreement and executing the agreement. So it is of most importance that we do get not a fully fleshed out agreement today, but something that Rod and I can operate on and we can move forward with this.
Decisions that we'll need to make in this is exactly what real estate we're talking about. I think that's a significant decision. As I understand, I think the parcel there is 80 acres, but how much of that would be either leased or owned by the sewer district? And so that's an important part of this conversation as well, recognizing that the sewer district really needs, obviously, the area that it's going to be using with the facility, but also an opportunity to expand, which we do recognize as a very good possibility, at least some years down the road. So we want to leave that available to us as well.
Correct, and as I've explained to my board, we need that opportunity to carve that out, have our surveys ready, because we need a legal description for any and all options that we have. So that is a very important piece of this puzzle that really should be decided on today.
Would we?
Yes, Mr. Foley.
Would we be able to assign all of our rights or easements to the collection system to convey to the sewer district also? All the pipes and all the, you know, the sewer plant is one piece of real estate, but the other is where our collection.
Correct.
And so any transaction we make should include the collection. And I don't know if you and Rod have a recommendation or what the plus and minus is for the lease and what the plus and minus is for the contract. You know, a purchase agreement is a done deal. That's appealing, but are there pluses and minuses to each one of these?
I suppose there are from the sewer district's perspective. I think and maybe both sides, I don't know, but the lease is attractive for a couple of reasons. One is that, as you recall from what the sewer district did years ago when it started with the Weiser addition in Madison Township, you know, it scraped along for quite a while, just barely getting by financially, because it's not certainly wasn't a get-rich-quick scheme. And in fact, it's still, I mean, it's financially viable, but there's not flush with cash in any way, shape, or form. The same can be said for this system right now because of its size. I think it probably has potential to grow more quickly than Weiser, but it's still going to take a while for that to happen. And so the prospect of owning real estate is less attractive. The other thing that probably matters to both sides, when you look at this, as I said before, when you have some finances that, some capital, an inflow of capital, meaning cash, from Bargersville or whomever it might be, there's an obligation for the sewer district to pay that back to the redevelopment commission. It's probably easier and cleaner to do with that lease, because typically when you have a contract to purchase and you purchase it and it's done and that relationship is over. So the lease kind of keeps that probably more secure. Not that you'd have trouble collecting from the sewer district necessarily, but it's probably a cleaner transaction for that reason.
The con I would point out is whether the document in which we draft would complicate any future partnerships. So that's something that we have to be cognizant of while drafting, that the idea is future partnerships, maybe not specifically writing with whom, but allowing that document to live past that potential partnership or negotiations, so that we're not back at the table renegotiating everything from square one. So a lease will make it slightly more complicated, but.
Partnerships with like Johnson County or Bargersville.
Those kinds of things, yeah.
Correct. So thinking of it as a lease, if there was an ownership interest type of discussion with Bargersville or with Johnson County, how that could actually work or be fleshed out in writing when we are currently holding a lease with the sewer district. So there's pros and cons on both sides. We can make both work. But we, as the RDC, do have a little bit cleaner and a little bit stronger hold with a lease than we do with an outright purchase. It's just keep in mind that it will make it a little bit more complicated when it comes to the partnership documentation.
You know, we're hearing a lot from our attorneys. I'd love to hear from the RDC members and the sewer board members. What are your thoughts? I mean, these are all good points that they're bringing to us, but I definitely would like to hear what your thoughts are as well, pros and cons.
Daniel, I have a question, and maybe I've missed it, but in the lease, if there would be a problem with the sewer system for some reason, is that their responsibility to fix, or would that come back to the RDC for us to pay funds to fix that?
Okay, I was thinking a little bit about that, Carol. It would be, in my opinion, the sewer district's responsibility to maintain and upkeep that entire system. Probably we could spell that out a little bit more effectively in that lease. But that's, again, the RDC isn't in the business of maintenance and upkeep of this, and I think we recognize that's our responsibility. Going to give the microphone to Eric Acker now, who's the president of the sewer district.
Thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, as Rod said, I'm Eric Acker, the president of the Regional Sewer Board. Love the position. Just for the history on that, I was sitting in the right seat when Jeff Coyle was flying that airplane, and when he bailed out, he gave me the stick and said, "You got it, buddy." And here I am.
I know that feeling.
8 years later, so. To the point being made, though, in our rate studies, the RDC had pledged us $6,000 a year for the first 4 years to handle just those kind of things. So if the first year, or is it 2 years, Brian, the system is totally under warranty from the contractor. So if something breaks, it's on the contractor to fix. And beyond that, we have $6,000 a year pledged from the RDC to take care of those things. My opinion, I'll just say Rod speaks very well on behalf of the sewer board. I think we would really like to prefer to lease the land and as opposed to purchase it outright.
You will purchase it someday, won't you?
But we need to get on our feet and be sure what's going on.
Clarify, the lease was in 4 years, an option to purchase in 4 years.
We had just put in 4 years at that time. There's no rhyme or reason to it, so
Yeah.
that's a flexible term.
In government terms, that's actually pretty quick, so I'm comfortable with that. But I don't, that's my opinion. I don't want to speak for the other RDC members, so I'd like to get their feedback. Maybe they prefer a buy option just because it's cleaner.
That's the appeal of the buyout, but if it's contrary to the policy that's been expressed here, I have no objection to a lease. I want to make sure that it's a whole system that can be leased and
not just a portion of it.
Not just a portion of it. And the plants, don't we have, Kenny, does Martin Marietta still have access to part of that premises?
Not Martin Marietta, but actually, Wallace Construction does, absolutely.
I'm sorry, Wallace.
And one thing to clarify is that while we haven't determined the exact layout, one of the things we have talked about in the RDC is we're going to have the land replatted. So that way, whatever the sewer district is leasing or buying or what have you, is going to be something set. It's not going to be the 80 acres. You don't need that. You don't want that. I know you've all expressed, you don't want that hassle, and I don't blame you. This is literally, in fact, one of the things I'd like us to have an idea of here today is what are we looking at? How much land do you think you would need when it comes to being prepared for expansion? And maybe Brian Bullock can answer that question for us. Do we have an idea of, I know this is ballpark, but what kind of land would they need even 15 years from now? Things are going great, the area is growing. How many acres do you think they need?
I don't know if we have an acre figure, but we kind of have an area
Yeah, if we can get that, share with everybody, and maybe if we have an idea, I mean, again, I'm not trying to quote anybody, but if we know it's 3 acres, it's 4 acres, it's 10 acres, I mean, it's 80 acres, there's lots of land there, folks. Well, and in the sewer plants I've seen, and Eric, you have a lot more experience than I have, I've never seen one that needed more than 10 acres. Okay, so if we were to say 10 acres, does that make sense, roughly? Does anybody, I mean, again, I know there's details to get worked out, but does that make sense to everybody?
I'm the newbie, Kim Meredith. I am new to the RDC. But my question, I guess, is on, so there's land that is on this, in this 80 acres. There needs to be clarification that the land that is leased to someone else at this point, that would stay with the RDC, and you would receive those. The RDC would receive that funding that you're receiving as the rent, so to speak, on that land.
Mm-hmm.
The sewer district, in taking that over, would not be, I just want to be clear that the sewer district's not going to be the one receiving those funds from that rent.
That would be correct.
Okay, I just wanted that clarified.
Yep.
If we're talking about, it's Carol Snyder, if we're talking about the term of the lease,
Right.
I mean, do we know of any other situations where there's been an RDC and they've done something similar with a sewer district, and do they do leases to perpetuity? I guess as a realtor, I'm hesitant to leases that don't have an option at the end to purchase. That's just, like I said, that's kind of my realtor
I think this one
background.
does, though, does it not? This one does.
So this one does,
Yeah.
and we might limit that, okay. Good.
It's Kenny. Hey, I just want to ask Brian one question. Brian, I'm looking at and working with the surveyor to get that survey done so we could do the plating. I'm looking at the plan area, easement for ingress egress, but then also for where the discharge goes down to the river, that discharge area's got to be calculated in that acreage as well, the way I look at it, as well as future expansion. Yeah.
We can
I
make
just wonder-
that lease with options to extend it too, can't we, Dakota?
Hear you, Ralph?
Ralph?
Options to another 4-year option or whatever.
Yes, we can do that.
We might want to draft it that way, that there's options to renew.
This is a very provisional draft. So this was just some structured framework in order to have the discussion. We have done similar terms like that in other circumstances, and we can certainly add that in as well.
When you were, again, insurance, we don't want to maintain the fire and extended coverage, but particularly liability insurance when somebody else is operating it. I understand people in this world sue people.
No, never heard of such a thing.
I wear that insurance hat, so that's my day job. That was my next question, that needed to clarify who's responsible for the insurance for if in that lease agreement, that the sewer district would carry the insurance.
Correct.
Yes,
And then I believe Aqua has their own as well.
okay. One other question, this just seems silly, or I mean, it may seem silly, but are we setting a precedent for future endeavors? I mean, for the next development that the RDC does, is it to our advantage to have done a lease in this event, and then the next development that we do or the next venture that we enter into, is that good or bad that we do leases at the end, and it's not a straight-out purchase? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
I would imagine that
I mean, there
future
may be-
cases might bring it up, but as far as setting a precedent to where we would be held to that, no, absolutely not. It does not. Each are individual contractual relationships with the two parties, so they cannot use that to hold us to
And it might
a
be
lease.
advantageous that we offer such an opportunity to do a lease if they're not in a position to purchase outright at that time.
Sure.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, from the sewer district's perspective, it's mainly, you're a fairly new organization and the cash isn't there yet. It's not that you don't want to own it, it's just you're not ready at this point, right here, right now.
Is something else that needs to be done prior to startup, or before we start up, we need to do this, or we need to have this in place, or things like that? We're learning as we go. And I'll be totally honest about that. I've been around a lot of sewer plants, you know, my day job is tangential to this. But being on the other side, I've never done it before, nobody on the board has ever done it before. So we'll do our best, and we've done our best so far. I think we're close to finishing. But I take on ownership at this point, is just one extra hurdle that I personally not ready for.
And Dana, for me, and for all those in the attendance, if you don't know, I'm the banker in the room, so for me, the clean way to do this is the purchase.
Right.
That's the cut and dry way to do this. However, like Eric just said, and we all know that to be the case, that this is an excellent opportunity for these guys to get started and for that community out there in that area to get started and really succeed and get this thing done in a reasonable frame of time after it is taken care of. So I am for the lease. I would be for the lease. Rod, for me, what happens is if an external partner wants to come in and say during this lease period, say, hey, we would like to reduce this by however much that amount is, does that lease need to be rewritten at that point? Or how does that work as far as language in that document? Or does that partnership have to come in after the fact, or?
Troy, fair question. I guess the way I see it, we've tried to build a little bit of flexibility in here so that if we have a partner that comes in and they would pay, conceivably, they'd pay a percentage of the capacity of the wastewater treatment facility that they're going to use. And this lease would accommodate for that, and so it would tell us what we would need to do. They wouldn't necessarily have an ownership of the property at that point, but they'd have a use and a use agreement with the sewer district. So I think this lease would accommodate that. If it gets more complicated and we have, and that's where I see this going first, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the conversations go with other parties. If it gets more complicated and it looks like it makes sense to kind of join the Waverly Sewer District area with another area that is outside the county, because there's about everywhere over there is, then at that point you might need to rework this, but that, we could always do that if we need to. That hasn't come to fruition yet.
I would agree with that. Just keep in mind that when we're having those discussions with the other parties, that if we are in this lease, I know we have been asked about ownership interest from the beginning, but that would be a different process than what this lease would allow for. So it just shapes our future negotiations is all.
Very good.
It sounds like if we go with the lease option, then even if there are any kind of discussions of something larger than a big user, for instance, a new sewer district getting created or what have you, then the RDC is going to be part of those discussions anyway. It's not going to be something happening outside of our involvement. And so maybe maybe the lease option actually does provide a little bit more flexibility for us, as well as helping out.
With the
sewer
lease
district.
option, we would have to be a party to it.
There you go. Well, then I'm going to say for that reason alone, I'm supportive of the lease option.
These guys have done an amazing job putting this together, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. And in fairness, not that the rest of the world cares, but if they really cared, the real hard job has been what the attorneys,
Great job.
There is nothing easy about what we're trying to do here. This is not cut and dry by any stretch. So do we ask for consensus here? Okay, so I'll ask for the RDC side. All those in.
I would start with the sewer board side since they're all in agreement and it's our our contractual obligation with them.
Can we maybe see a show of hands from the sewer board, who's in favor of the lease? All right, who's in favor of buy, of a purchase option? All right, on the RDC, who's in favor of a lease? Who's in favor of a purchase option?
So united
We're
front.
united. There you go, I like that.
I do too.
We're on the same page. Yay. First step of the meeting accomplished.
Right.
While our non-voting member, for those who aren't aware, the school cannot vote. That's why he didn't raise his hand one way or the other. All right, we appreciate
Be
it.
clear. Yeah,
Moral support member.
we like that. Yeah.
Why does this keep cutting in and out? Okay. While we're all here and in the spirit of working together, then let's hammer out some of the details. Some of the details being a duration of the lease. I know we said we put in an arbitrary 4 years, and then Ralph Foley put in the suggestion of a renewal term in congruence with the option to buy. And then also, if we can narrow down and make a vote on the amount of land, we had discussed the 10 acres, but if that can be more definitive, because we do have to pay surveyors, probably now, I'm sure we owe somebody money, Kenny.
Yes.
So that we can go ahead and pursue that.
All right, then let's focus first on the first topic that you asked about, and that is the duration and the whether it's renewable. I'm okay with the 4 years, but what's the sewer board think? 4 years, okay?
Do you need an
Well,
option?
to keep the flexibility as per Ralph's suggestion, like a 4-year with like option to renew, either maybe for another 4-year term or 2 other 4-year terms. I don't know that we'll need it out that far, but maybe it's not bad to have in there.
I think that makes sense. I agree. What about the sewer district? So, someone had their hand up? Or just? Okay, so then if we look at this, what we're all agreeing to is 4-year option to buy, and at the end of the 4 years, option to buy or renew the lease. And they can do that, you know, do we want to just keep going, or do we want to put a limit on how many times?
Well, that's fine, just make a 4-year
Yeah.
option, and then we can revisit it.
4-year with an option to renew for another 4-year or buy at the end of the first 4-year term.
Okay.
They're revisiting in 4 years because situations may change. Perfect.
And does it have in there that if they would choose to purchase before that 4 years, they could do that? I mean, I'm looking at it from a real estate,
That's
that's
a good
usually,
point.
I mean, if you have an option to purchase, you can exercise that option at any time, so.
That's a fair suggestion.
And that's actually a good idea, because there just may come a point where you say, hey, we're ready, it's not 4 years, we're ready to do it now.
All right,
And
so
you're
I'll
not
amend
gonna
that to
have a
option to buy at any time.
So consensus on that from the sewer district? Consensus on that from the RDC? Yes. Yes? All right. Any opposed to those ideas? All right. Again, this is a consensus. We can't have official votes here, folks. These are just consensus votes. All right. The next question on the table is how many acres? 10 is what's mentioned.
I mean,
Do we?
other than the fact that
Yes.
we're making a draft and then that will go to them, but.
Under
yeah,
5?
we can make
So should we say 5? What about including, now, I do want to say this because it was mentioned by Kenny, I think, the pipe that goes into the river, we want to make sure that's included. So does that include that?
The collection system.
Collection system easements.
Well, I wasn't referring to
And
collection
that's a
system.
discharge.
That's discharge. I'm talking about discharge.
Discharge. The
Yeah,
collection
Kenny was
system's
talking
gonna
about
be a
discharge.
lot more.
So let's go back, we got too many. Does that include the discharge system?
Yep.
So, and it is a small area, but still, it is a specific area. What? Right, easement for the driveway.
Yeah, I was hoping that would be just an easement, Eric's what I was hoping, ingress, egress for you guys. I was hoping that'd be just an ingress egress easement for you guys. Yeah. Because you don't need to own that part of it.
And my point is this, going back to the discharge, I don't see the reason for the RDC to own land that is being used for discharge purposes, because that's really, other than people going fishing and discharging, that's the only thing that land will be used for.
Agree.
System though. So, I
Right,
mean,
it's
it
part of the
should go
system, so
through
I'd like to see that included.
Yes.
Yeah,
in
and the
that.
ownership.
I'm hearing that from others as well.
Absolutely.
The 10 acres encompass that?
So then, let's say 10 acres, including the discharge system. What's the sewer district feel about that?
The 5 didn't include the discharge.
Right.
Including the discharge.
Discharge 5 acres too.
That's what he said. I think it's too much. Let's
I
clarify
don't
it.
care.
Hold on.
The easement, yeah, the easement I'm not looking at as part of the property. We'll make sure we have easements. I'm thinking about mainly specifically that lease, what we're leasing. And to me, the 10 acres, as was mentioned, which would include the
That would
discharge
encompass
area,
that, yeah.
makes more sense.
Is it 5 acres plus the discharge area, or, Brian?
Encompass that. Brian, my only question to you is, I don't think the total area of the collection lift stations, is that gonna be within the 10 acres? Because I think you're gonna be pushing it if you're including the collection system, treatment, discharge, and additional expansion area. I don't think 10 would get all that, would it?
Yeah, that's easements, right?
The collection is easement.
Yeah, that wouldn't be included in the 5 or the 10 acres. I mean, that would be separate to that parcel. That's the way I would see it. Brian, is that the way you see it? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
It's actually a plotted lot.
Okay. Yeah, they're going to be easements. And,
Whatever, and if we're subject to any rights of Wallace, for their access,
They just have an easement.
Yeah. Bri-
Them out right now, I mean, can't, when they get surveyed, and we have, yeah, I mean, I think,
yeah, we're trying to ballpark it, I think, right now.
it's a ballpark, and then we just say whatever the survey comes up with, we want it to include the discharge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and then we'll have to have a surveyor come out there and say exactly what it is. So I think if we say, at this point in time, we're talking about up to 10 acres,
right.
I think that's
Yeah,
a
to be
fair, it
determined.
may be 7, it may be 8, it may be 11.
Whatever you do come up with, then provide to Kenny so that we can have the surveyor go and actually stake the area.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So 10 acres, consensus?
whatever.
Up to?
No, just whatever.
Whatever.
Now, I'm gonna throw a little bit of a wrench in this.
No.
When are we going live? Going live? When we tell you to go live? When we tell you this agreement's ready and we're ready for that? Okay. So can we do, I guess this is a legal question then, can we do an agreement that in theory is enforceable while we're still working on we're not gonna be through planning process, survey and planning process prior to
That's
whenever
correct.
we're ready to go live? So can we all give each other grace on that one and work together?
I guess the other point I would make about the actual startup date is there's going to be a difference between startup date and when we actually start processing waste because we've got 17 houses, 13 of which have a grinder pump. None of them will be connected to the plant on day one because they can't. So we'll have the school hooked up on day one, as I understand it. But other than that, we can't start billing them for 60 days afterwards. When we set up the contracts with the SRF, the $100,000 grant, we said they'll have 60 days from the day the plant's operational, we'll start billing them. So they also have a contract that says that they agree that. Point being,
we can't guarantee any income on our side until then. Yeah, when the schools are done.
Our kids are ready to go.
Daniel, one more time for me. Have we moved past the property issue? Have we consensus past that?
Yes.
Yes, we moved past that. The question that was brought up was the, issue of startup date. And when can we have these agreements in time before the startup date? Which it sounds like there's two different startup dates. There's the startup date for the plant to start functioning versus the startup date when the sewer district is saying, we're in business to the customers. Right.
Right.
So it sounds like we just need to get this agreement worked out before your startup date, not before the plant startup date. Does that sound accurate?
I don't know how we would.
Nope.
move the land.
Okay, that creates a problem because I don't know if we want to ever be
No, we
in the
don't
sewer
wanna be.
business even on day, even for one day.
We don't want to be listed owner, no. Yeah, we don't want to be listed owner, but I don't know how we could contractually do a lease without naming what we're leasing.
We don't need income, Eric.
We don't need the.
It's $1 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about,
I'm not worried about that. I just don't think we can do a lease without carving it out.
There's no impediment to us executing a lease before either one of those two dates. We
but
don't have to wait for
The only date I'm concerned with is having the lease obtain the legal description of the land. I don't think we can do a lease without having the named property. So I can't do that prior to knowing what the actual lease is, because then when I go to my favorite place on earth, the recorder in the auditor's office, and I get all the anxiety that I had in middle school of getting my test graded, they are gonna look at me like I'm crazy without having the lease have the actual land carved out.
Agree.
They wouldn't
No,
take
they
it.
won't
No,
take it.
I'd get sent home again.
What,
Ahead and do that, right? Because that's what we're talking about, just narrowing down exactly what that property is, and then they'll tell us the exact, right? And then we get it surveyed?
that's my only concern is like Dakota's. I mean, we need to find that. We got to vacate, replat that. That's not going to happen overnight. So, I mean, we're in the process of getting it surveyed now so we can get the new plats. And then we're going to have to go to the planning commission, do our notification, all this, get their blessing. Because we're not asking for a rezone, we're only asking for a vacate replat. So, I mean, it's,
I guess I
We're not
would
gonna be
propose that we reach an agreement within our minutes that makes it a oral contract, and then contingent on getting the land platted, finishing out this lease option, and then we can go. The biggest time-consuming part is getting that survey and having that survey presented to us. That's the one time factor we cannot control.
Right.
Burdick, do you folks have surveys of all that property? We sent out surveyors and things?
It wouldn't be surveyed just.
no,
wouldn't
Mike
be
Shepard, Kenny's been talking to Mike Shepard about
Who's the one that's
redoing
been
that.
doing
The
it,
survey, the surveys are all over the place. There are different, the plots, how they're marked out. It is a mess. It does need to be replatted. And there isn't a clear definition of this land is here, because right now, you have one plot of land and another plot of land, another plot, and what we're talking about encompasses multiple different pieces.
Yeah.
So it's not clear.
all we're actually talking about on the Morgan County side, we got two lots for sure. Actually, I think we got 3 lots, if I remember right.
I would think so.
Yeah, we got 3 lots, I know. We're gonna be vacating, replatting one of them for sure. We're not talking about anything at all in the Johnson County, because they're not gonna be getting anything on the Johnson County side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's gonna be a little faster getting it, because we only gotta go through Morgan County Planning and Zoning. But down the road, if we do it with RMR, then we gotta use both counties, so. But
And Laura, you're there in the back from the Planning Commission. do we have any idea of, how we can how long it's gonna take us to do this? I don't wanna say fast track, but yes, how quick can we get this done so that we can, I don't like it when it's nebulous. That scares me.
Shepherd's already surveyed the whole property once to start with, and then we've asked him to go ahead and do this, and then he's actually got to survey it, split this out, and then he's got to get the plating part of it done. Once he gets that done, then we're ready to go to the planning commission.
Okay.
And we still got the time period of getting that done, getting in front of them, so.
So is that
How
60
long-
days or 30 days?
60's plenty, but I don't think it's
Still
gonna
not
happen
in
in
time for you
30.
guys to start your process as of March. I mean, we're not going to be there.
I'm hoping the second week of March we will be there, but.
But you were
it's-
hoping to start customers as of March 1st, correct?
No.
April.
Okay.
Because they have to hook.
Okay, I apologize.
As far as this plant is concerned, the big thing is it sounds like the plant's gonna be ready before we're ready.
Sounds like it.
I'm not asking you to delay anything, I'm just saying, is this something that we can do some double checking, triple checking before to give us a little bit more time to get, so maybe instead of the beginning of March, maybe we're ready at the end of March? Is that something that's possible? Yeah, I mean, how terrible is it that that our contractors are saying they're gonna have it done early? Yeah.
And we're like, don't rush,
Wait a minute, we're not ready.
take a real long lunch.
And there might be such a thing that we can actually call, I know it's, they don't like it probably, and I'm even one of them, but we can get a special meeting for the planning commission and do this a little sooner, but they usually meet the second Monday of every month. That's why I was saying February's not gonna happen, March probably would.
So what if we have this as a plan? They're gonna double and triple check everything to make sure everything looks good and be ready at the end of March. We see if we can't get a special meeting going.
Yeah,
And,
we might have to if
and
it's really
then,
soon.
and that way our timetable is in sync.
So this is covered if we just put it in our minutes as an agreement, contingent upon the plating. So then that's in writing. Then both commissions, both boards are going to be comfortable that we have it secured in writing, contingent on the plating, because I can't record it beforehand. So if we do it that way, we're still secure. Both parties know what's happening, but we need to do it the correct way the first time.
Yes.
Right, and we're not signing as owners.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I think that sounds like a great, everyone's doing something to make it happen. Any other issues regarding the lease?
Will the sewer district be able to maintain the insurance then, Eric?
And Aqua as well,
Agreement. Okay.
would both maintain.
Fire and
I got it, number 12.
12.
And then I think we'll flush out maintenance a little more. Adding that agreement that we had prior to a section towards, or the 6,000 towards maintenance. Anything above and beyond that would be out of the RDC's hands.
So are you gonna tweak 9 and 10 both then? Because I mean, the way that is, that don't even state anything about the 2-year warranty on the contractor.
Right, we have to add that in, that the 2-year warranty on the contract would then fall on the builders, and then anything beyond that, the $6,000 that we have allotted towards maintenance, and anything beyond that would be on the sewer district themselves.
Dakota, we ought to assign any warranty, all warranties to the sewer district.
I would say that's correct.
Yep. Thank you, Ralph.
Anything else?
Anything else from anyone else?
When it comes to the lease?
I'm good.
This has been a lot more productive than I thought a meeting of this size would be so far. So far, good on
I'm
us.
so happy right now. I can't necessarily see behind this mask, but I'm awfully happy right now.
We're starting
Put 2020
Thank
behind
you, exactly.
Yeah, so far, right? Don't knock on wood or anything.
Let me knock on your head.
Okay. When is the sewer district's next meeting? Just, okay. And ours, the redevelopment commission's is the 8th, so hopefully we will have an updated lease to consider at our meeting on the 8th, 18th.
Great.
Awesome.
Not too many changes, really.
Cool. Very good.
Good work.
All right.
Anything
you,
else for the
Dakota.
good of the meeting?
Well, we didn't really touch number 4 yet.
What is that?
The Waverly region, which is more county commissioners.
Yeah, I would not worry about it. If you want to talk about it, it's fine. but-
Kenny, do you want to touch on anything with point 4 of the meeting?
On what now?
Agenda item,
Agenda item, hold on just a second.
economic growth opportunities throughout the Waverly region.
Partnerships with different folks, things like that.
Partnerships with what, Daniel?
With the different folks,
Oh,
different units.
the only thing I'm gonna say, and I've been back and forth all over on it, and I've gotta go back to where I first originally was. We did this for two big reasons to start with. Waverly School needed that sewer. We also did it because, three reasons, actually. We knew that was gonna boom up there. I mean, we have good access, we're gonna boom up there. So, I mean, with NDOT not having the best access, that's probably, and I've told Travis Underhill, Deputy Commissioner for NDOT, I mean, it's basically made us a bed and breakfast now. We're gonna have residential growth, and we're not gonna really have, we don't have good access coming down Old Waverly Park Road to Waverly Road to any of the developable areas on the west side. We're definitely gonna have to go even farther a little bit, not about the same, but going up to Waverly Road, to Banner Road, to get over to Whiteland Road, to get over to State Road 44 that way, because Banner Road's gonna be stubbed as well. We were working with NDOT trying to get Banner Road straight shot right up through the Duke Development property to 144. That would have made us still very economic development opportunities for all of our TIF areas in there, but that got shut down by NDOT. So that is something that I'm still working on and working with Mike Duke on, and I mean, that's still possible, hopefully. But right now, the way it's looking, I mean, economic development, if it stays the way it is with no changes, you're gonna have a lot of residential. I mean, unfortunately, that's what you're gonna have, because the core property's already being split and sold. You've got one other property that's already, the Clarkson, that's already being split off and sold a little bit. So, I mean, your big TIF areas for economic development growth, for Wetzel Trace Business Park that we had, me and Jeff had tagged back in 2004 and 5, it's gonna be splintered out and probably go all to residential instead of commercial now. So that's a shame, but, so as far as more growth in Waverly, I see a lot of residential. I know we had it in our last comp plan as a critical sub-area because we really anticipated a lot of economic development growth right there. But without having a direct interchange or a direct access to 144, it's kind of killing the economic development growth there, other than housing. That's
So,
my best
do
synopsis.
you foresee any, I know there's both the Johnson County who's interested in partnering, and there's in Bargersville. There's a lot of talk, and a lot of different people talking about those things. What are the options for partnerships on there? Do you see any?
I know my part on it, I was all for partnering with Bargersville years ago. But there's been so much water that's crossed under the bridge since then, I'm just not there on that anymore, that's for sure. And I know Eric knows that. I told it to a group of council members over in Bargersville that I had him and Diane Herkamp come over with us, and it's just went too far down the road. As far as Johnson County, I'm I was in favor of that as well. Still, I'm in favor of working with them some kind of way. I've always said I want to be a good neighbor. That is to Johnson County, that is to Bargersville. But good neighbor, I don't believe should include ownership anymore. It never did when me and Jeff started this, and I don't think it ought to now. We've taken all the risk, and Eric stated this before, we've taken all the risk. We have, so I mean, why do we want to go ahead and sell to Bargersville or to Johnson County? The growth is gonna come whether we like it or not. At least this way we're prepared. Look at who all's wanting to purchase and buy now. They're not wanting to buy that because it's gonna be a losing proposition. We need to hold on to it. If they want to buy capacity, let them do that at a reduced rate by utility. If they want to do it, just release to where their customers can be utilized by us, let them do it. It's gonna cost the residents more, but let them do it. I mean, you got different options there. But I'm all in favor of going ahead and leasing, working with them, being a good neighbor that way, but selling it, I'm totally opposed to anymore myself.
Okay.
If I can speak to Bargersville for just a minute. As Kenny mentioned, we worked with them for years trying to get any place in. We just kept getting slapped in the face. And so we dropped them. There's only so much you can do before you say, okay, we're here if you want us. Well, over the summer, they had a complete changeover in their town council in the last election cycle. And they have 5 new members on there. And over the summer, one of them reached out to Ryan Goodwin, who's our vice president, and said, hey, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard. Why are we pumping all this stuff from 144 back to Bargersville? Why don't we just go to your plant? And Ryan kind of went, yeah, makes sense to us. Where you been? So we've continued those conversations, and we're to the point now that they're very concerned about the 2 gas stations in the Whiskey River on the corner there, as were we. And we worked it out where they're gonna be up and running into our plant by the end of the year, which is good news for everybody because nobody wants those things to go away. So that's the short-term plan, is we will have those 3 businesses as a single customer. We will bill Bargersville, and Bargersville will bill them individually, however they want to work that out. But we have a rate structure such that we can take, it's per 1,000 gallons of sewage. And then the long-term plan is to bring Mike Duke's sewage up to our plant as well, and it's still out there. It's not on the front burner right now. We're just trying to get those 3 up there because they lose their septic at the end of this year. So, but to the point of Bargersville, though, they've had a complete changeover and a complete change of thought, and we're very, very grateful that they've come around because it just makes sense, and we're glad they understood that finally. So, thanks.
And I will say, I know the owners of Oak Hill subdivision, they've got that cluster system. They did come back and get a vacate replat in section 1 to where they can actually let more go on the cluster system. Some can actually have septic systems on their property with that vacate replat. But I know Ernie would love to hurry up and let us get phase 2 going, and they would love to be able to hook onto us and get rid of that cluster system they do have and have everybody on sewer. The pipes are already in the ground for section 1 for everyone to be on sewer. But they did come back and vacate replat. Some of them's got as many as 2 lots now, so they've got septics, but eventually, Dagan, hopefully all of them would be. An original plan was we would not force anybody to go on the sewer system. That's what me and Jeff felt like was the best to start with, and that was probably, looking in hindsight, that wasn't the smartest thing to do for us, but that's what we had done then. But anybody new construction was going to automatically have to go to the plant. So I mean, that's what the original agreement was, and I'm just glad. But if we ever see that sold down the road to a third party and the county don't have any say-so in it, I mean, you got some people there beside the school on Edith and some of them that, hey, maybe they're paying $50, $60 a month now, but what if that does go up to $100 a month? That's still a concern for me. And I know I still talk with Jeff quite a bit, and I talked to him actually again today as well, and that would be a concern for him if he was still around and still had a say in it. What about the people that can't really afford? They're just barely getting by now, period. So that's another concern if we ever would sell it down the road. So.
Good point.
very much. Pardon me, I just, you know, not been out, I was early on and then was away from it. And it's just so pleasing to see the two boards and the accomplishments of a lot of people for the best of all the growth of the county, for the best of our people in Johnson County. I'm pleased to be a part of it. I did have, I saw I at least had $2 on that. I stuck them in case anybody got it.
I asked for them about 30
I
minutes
know, I
ago.
would have been.
And the only thing I'll say is it brought to my attention early on that the sewer district was not flush with money.
You know, I've gone a whole month without your humor. Oh, my goodness.
Anyone has to add, I know it's taken a lot of time, but we're actually under time, but we're all in one room. So I don't want anyone to walk out of this room and say, this wasn't said, or I wish I'd said this, or had the opportunity to. I'm throwing it out there. This has been so fruitful, and I'm so happy that we were able to do this. So thank you, Kenny.
We got one other person that's being awful quiet in this room that I've also talked to today, and I know he's been a great asset for the county, and I am so glad that we brought Josh on. But Josh, I know you got some things noted down. You want to talk about any of them? It's your last chance for the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, come on, Josh.
Well, any other issues or concerns?
I think so.
RDC?
Are we adjourned, Don?
Not yet.
I'll just say one more thing here. We've said it before, and this, on behalf of the sewer board, as it's been said before, we could never have done this without the RDC, and we sure appreciate it. I'm going to take a little issue with you saying it was the wrong thing to do to not make everybody hook up. You weren't standing in front of the room with me and Daniel that night down at Waverly. I'm still picking tar and feathers out of my behind, okay? But having said that, when it looked like, and this was November of 17 that we had that meeting, and it looked like, man, this is the dumbest thing we've ever done. Having said that, when we sent out the letters to the 100 people that were on the line, we had 35 that said, hey, this might be a good idea. And when push came to shove and it says, okay, here's how much you're gonna have to invest, we had 17 that finally said they could. So that's about 15 more than I would have bet on that night. So on behalf of the sewer board, we sure appreciate the effort the RDC has put into this and making it happen, because we could never have done it alone. And it obviously is a need that those folks down there have. So appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I think this is a perfect example of how local government's supposed to work and how partnerships work, because, yeah, we've had discussions and they weren't always, they weren't always as agreeable as today's, but we got to here, and that is the most important thing right there. So I'm really grateful for the sewer district, for the commissioners, especially for my fellow RDC members, because this has been a long time coming and a big project, and there's a lot of people who have told us, we can't do this and it's not gonna happen. And when we cut that ribbon, when that does happen, I'm just gonna have a big grin on my face. That's all I have to say.
Got one last thing that, number 4, there is one more thing that economic development was, RDC still could do, and I just tagged on it just a minute ago. Phase 2. I mean, you really need sewer on Huggin Hollow, across Huggin Hollow to the east side of the highway to Oak Hills. That is something that could really still be utilized, because I don't think the Regional Sewer Board can actually do that kind of construction and everything. Can they, Rod? Yeah. So I just thought I'd mention that, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And I'd concur with that. Yep.
Isn't this funny? When nobody wanted us and everybody was trying to drive us out, and now they're all saying,
at it.
wait a minute, it's our turn next. Boy, things have turned.
Gonna happen.
It
It's
is, it
gonna
is.
explode.
And we knew that, and that's why we did what we did. So thank you, everybody, for all the hard work on making it happen. I don't think the RDC has anything else. Well, Don, you're in charge, so.
Collier did, I'll second.
Oh, yeah, amen.
Hi.
Yes, say goodbye.
Everybody.